I'd be lying if I said I've never felt so conflicted over a piece of legislation as I have over this one that is before us right now. All along, I have always supported the rights for the territories to choose their laws around euthanasia. Part of me understands why there are many advocates for assisted suicide legislation. I only have to think back to the pain and suffering my late fiance went through 15 years ago, who was fighting a rare form of cancer. She had been battling the disease for a few years, where eventually it came to a point every breath she took was a struggle. In 2003, she took her last breath and found her peace. Witnessing this was by far the most gut-wrenching and devastating experience of my life. There were many times when we all wanted the pain, the suffering, the trauma and the heartache to end. However, we still hoped she could beat this deadly disease. Cancer is a horrid disease. There are no winners, and the amount of pain and hurt it causes is immeasurable. 15 years on, I have had plenty of time to reflect about this experience, but the reality is I'm still torn about the issue of assisted suicide. And moreover, who are we to deny someone's dying wish? After meeting a group of doctors this week who are steadfast against euthanasia, more questions have been raised, forcing me to question my stance on the issue. What are the safeguards that come with this legislation? What is the safety net to ensure people who aren't just lonely or depressed get captured in this vacuum of assisted suicide? Is this the answer to our problem? Is this the solution? Don't we have any other options? When we look a bit closer, palliative care is something that seems to be forgotten and seemingly fallen off the radar. During my deliberation on this complex issue, I was stunned to learn that of the 49 recommendations made in Victoria's inquiry into end of choices, 30 of those related to the improvement of palliative care funding and access. Only one recommendation related to the introduction of assisted suicide, which, as we all know, Victoria has legalised euthanasia. I believe investing in palliative care is an area of focus that the state, territory and federal governments must hone in on. The dedication by nurses, doctors and carers in this area is phenomenal, and it is refreshing to note that Australian palliative care services are ranked amongst the best in the world. What I fear about this proposed legislation is that it may capture people who aren't necessarily on their deathbed, but are in fact lonely, isolated, have no family, feel they are a burden on society, and as a result are depressed and feel the only option they have left is to end their life. I feel we could do more in palliative care space. If the stats are right, there are only 2 palliative medicine specialists for every 100,000 people living in the ACT or Northern Territory, and that is some cause for major concern. I believe serious investment in palliative care is necessary to help patients live in a more comfortable space as they approach the end of their life. And I'm not just talking about a comfortable bed or a pillow or turning up the pump on the morphine. I'm talking about a holistic approach. I believe it's important to sort out our palliative care system properly to ensure we have done all we can before we look at facilitating assisted suicide. Such legislation, in my view, is a last resort. My fear is if the territories are granted the power to make their own laws, what safety measures are in place to only capture those that is intended to serve? After looking closely at the current legalised model in Victoria, I am not convinced it goes far enough to fill these gaps. Therefore, it is admittedly with a heavy heart that I declare I will not be supporting this legislation.